from man to person. At 1900, the turn of the 20th century, man lived on the land in a hand-to-mouth existence, growing and harvesting food, fetching, carrying wood and water to prepare for winter during summertime. A masterpiece of psychological manipulation has been put into place to bring man from the position of man on the land with property to that of legal person, legal name with ownership. The legal person, legal name, is a fictional creation that only exists in two dimensions on paperwork, and the legal fiction must have, it is a corporation, a corpse, and it must have a man to bring it to life. The method of mass trauma-based mind control has been used to transition man into legal person. World War I, 1914 to 1918, was an infantry war. And yes, this means young men, infants. It's estimated that 17 million military died during World War I. This is a massive swathe of the young men from across Europe was viciously taken away from their homeland to the fields of Europe to fight and kill in such horrendous conditions, to suffer the trauma of war. A young mind cannot experience such events on foreign soil without suffering post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. This was put into place deliberately to destroy the old ways, the old culture of living on the land, to bring man into that of person. The young men that survived the First World War returned home to be the fathers of the next generation, which would in 1938 be brought into the Second World War. These young men who fought in the Second World War were born to fathers who had returned from the First World War. This generation of young men were psychologically damaged and had trouble interacting and taking the role of fathers in a regular society. Their children, 20 years later, went to the Second World War to experience the same horror. The Second World War was a paramilitary war, a mechanised war, much more violent and much more destructive, where ammunitions and bombs were sent from a distance many aerial raid bombardments, warships, submarines, tanks, machine guns. The Second World War was much more mechanised and much more widespread in its effect. That the Second World War, part of the purpose of the Second World War was to destroy infrastructure, the cities, and the people who lived in the cities were also traumatized from their experiences, living in constant fear of bombardment, going into safe bunkers to be protected from the aerial bombardments, children sent away to the countryside to be away from the aerial bombardments, and these were coming for many years through the Second World War, which ended in 1945. So we have had two generations that have, within 40 years, which have experienced the horror of war. This is the mass trauma-based mind control which has been imposed on man to bring them from the position of man on the land into legal person, where we had to be traumatized on such a level and infused with fear and insecurity for the future, that the governments, those that want to control, had the possibility to bring us into legality via literacy. Common man on the land was illiterate and could not be brought into contract as a legal idiot. Man was traumatized twice in 40 years with both wars, and then given mass literacy and education. This was a widespread plan across Europe to bring everybody into legality, so man could be lured into reading and signing legal documents and legal contracts. And in this way, via registration as a legal name, man has given away, via registration, man has given away title ownership of property. So now all that was property of man is now title ownership of the Crown.